Long ago, around 1880, the Darling family lived in the city of London. It consisted of Mr. and Mrs. Darling and their children, Wendy, Michael and John. Not to mention Nana, of course, the nanny dog. They lived happily and peacefully until Peter Pan came into their lives. It all started the night Nana had the day off and Mrs. Darling stayed in charge of her children. When everyone, including her, was asleep, the boy entered through the window. But then she woke up and was so frightened to see him that she uttered a loud cry. Then came Nana, who closed the window to prevent it from coming out and ended up catching its shadow. And so it was that the shadow of Peter Pan ended up in a drawer of the house of the Darling. One night Mr. and Mrs. Darling went out for supper to the house of the neighbors of number 27. The children stayed at Nana's house and soon they all fell asleep. But when the house was silent, a tiny fairy fluttered in and behind her, Peter Pan, ready to regain his shadow. He found it in the drawer where Nana had kept it but was very sad when he realized that the shadow did not follow. He tried to squeeze it with soap but it did not work and he desperately sat on the floor crying. "Who's crying?" Wendy asked, sobbing. "It's me," Peter answered. "What is your name?" asked the girl, although she was almost sure to know who it was. "Peter Pan." "And what's wrong, Peter?" "I cannot get my shadow to stick to me." "Calm. I think I can color it." Wendy helped Peter and as the two children began to become friends. "I live in Everlad. It's wonderful, there you are always a child and you do not have to obey anyone. With me live the lost children, you know, the children who fall from the carts when the nanny looks the other way. There are also pirates, fairies, Indians and all kinds of beings." Peter said that he was very happy there even though he recognized that he and the lost children would like someone to tell them tales as she did with their brothers. Peter proposed to go with him to Everlad and Wendy at once thought it a wonderful idea. "But what about my brothers? Can they come too?" "If you want, of course." "Great." Wendy woke up Michael and John and Peter to start their journey. But before leaving, Peter explained that they must learn to fly. She poured some fairy dust over her and then the three children began to soar through the air. They all seemed very amusing and began to wander around and around the house. They made such a commotion that they finally awakened Nana. Peter heard her coming, so they could return to their beds quickly as if nothing had happened. So when the nanny entered the room she thought they slept peacefully. But Nana was uneasy and was almost certain that something strange was happening in the children's room, so she rushed to warn Mr. Darling. But when they returned, the children were gone. The three of them had left for Everlad, nervous and eager to live the fantastic adventure. They flew for days across oceans, but in the end they came to Never Jammers. The first to see from the air was the feared Captain Hook, Peter Pan's worst enemy. In a long struggle Peter had managed to snatch his right hand and so the pirate now had a hook. But he handled it perfectly and that, coupled with his desire for revenge, made him very dangerous. Although there was something that Captain Garfio was afraid of, the crocodile. Once he was about to eat it and that's why he wanted nothing other than him. Fortunately, the captain threw a watch at him, so he ticked every time he approached. They reached the place where the lost children were. But Tinker, who was very jealous of Wendy because she was all the time with Peter, went ahead to plot something. "Peter says you should attack Wendy," he told the lost children. "Agree." All answered in unison, running to their bows and arrows. So the children began firing their bows and arrows at Wendy and her brothers. But fortunately nothing happened to them. As soon as Peter got behind them all, he gave them a big scold. "But what are you doing? Above that I bring you a mother to tell you stories, you receive it like this." The lost children, who were dressed in the hides of the bears they hunted, apologized, and Peter introduced Wendy and the others. "These are Tootles, Slightly, Nibs, Curly and the twins." "Hi," the girl answered. "These are my brothers Michael and John, and I am Wendy." Wendy and her brothers decided to stay there, and together with the lost children and Peter formed a large family who lived happily in their underground lair. One day the children were playing in the Sirens Lagoon, specifically in the Rock of the Homeless, when something strange happened. Suddenly the sun disappeared completely, it became night, and in the shadows appeared a boat with two of the pirates of Garfio, Smee and Starkey, that took like prisoner to the Indian princess Tigridia. Peter, Wendy and the others hid themselves and watched as Tigridia was thrown over the Rock of the Forsaken. Then Peter came up with an idea. "Let her go," said to the pirates, imitating the voice of Captain Hook. "Captain," said the two pirates, looking at all sides. "You heard me. Do it." So the pirates cut the ropes that grabbed the princess. Then Captain Hook appeared on the lagoon aboard his ship. He went to tell them that he knew that the lost children had found a mother and could not allow it. "We'll kidnap them, force them to throw themselves overboard, and Wendy will become our mother." "Yes. It's a great idea, Captain," Smee and Starkey replied. Wendy went pale at this, and Peter, who could not stand it any longer, imitated Hook's voice again. But this time the pirate was smarter than at other times and knew that it was Peter Pan. He found him and fought against him until he managed to wound him with his hook, while the children escaped in the boat. Wendy was saved thanks to the help of the sirens and the kite that Michael had lost a few days before and that appeared there, while Peter managed to survive thanks to the help of Everlad. This adventure made Peter befriend the Red Indians, for they were grateful to him for having saved Princess Tigridia and promised to defend him with bows and arrows from the pirate attack. One night Wendy was telling the children her story about going to bed when she talked about mothers, how good and caring they are with their children. Peter did not agree with Wendy's ideas and argued with her, and at the same time the girls' brothers started feeling nostalgic for what they all decided that it was time to go home. "We're leaving tonight," said Sharp Wendy. The lost children were very sad to hear this and decided that they would go with her. Not so Peter, who in no way wanted to leave the Everlad country. At least he worried that Belle and the Redskins would accompany the children through the woods on their way back to England. But on his way back came new complications. The pirates were aware that they were going to pass by and waited for them perched on the trees in the forest. The children, and not Peter Pan, could expect such a thing, so they caught them unawares. Meanwhile Garfio went to Peter's secret lair, where the boy spent his time in solitude, making it clear that he did not mind being alone. The pirate hid inside a log and waited for Peter to fall asleep to throw a little glass of the secret and deadly poison that he always carried with him in a glass that had the boy next to his bed. "This time I could get him killed." But in the middle of the night Tinkerbell came to tell Peter what had happened and to warn him that he knew that Captain Garfio had poisoned him in his glass. So Peter sped away with his guns ready to rescue the children. Peter reached the pirate ship, the Jolly Roger, a sinister ship in which the children were about to be forced to jump down the catwalk to the sea. The pirates were tying Wendy to the mast at that moment when suddenly something that no one expected. Tick-tack, tick-tack, tick-tack. "It's that fucking crocodile. Quick Smee, hide me. Do not let him catch me," shouted Garfio, panic-stricken. But there was no crocodile there, it was Peter, who skillfully posed for him. As soon as Garfio went to his cabin to hide, Peter appeared on the deck of the boat in a jump and began to destroy the pirates one by one. But from his quarters Garfio stopped listening to the tic-tac and believed that the crocodile had fled and could leave again. When Garfio left, he encountered several dead pirates. No one knew what had happened exactly, so everyone began to think that the ship was cursed, because it is already known that pirates are somewhat superstitious. They were about to throw Wendy overboard, convinced that she was the one who drew bad luck, when Peter came out of his hiding place to avoid it. "Cheeky young man, get ready to die," said Garfio. "Not that damn captain, Hook." "It is not my hour but yours," answered the brave Peter Pan. They engaged in a violent fight of swords, and in the end Garfio was seriously wounded in the ribs, so much that he saw no way out and decided to throw himself overboard without knowing that the crocodile was